Good evening, friends. Before I start, I would like to request all of you to kindly put your handset on the mute as well as the uh, not screen sharing mode, so that or the speaker can have the experience of any kind of seamless speech delivery when he is delivering. Good afternoon, friends. First of all, let me introduce today's speaker. Ranjit Lal is the author of around 45 books, fiction and non-fiction, for children and the adults who are children. His abiding interest in natural history, birds, animals, and insects is reflected in many of his books. He has also written fictions which have serious social concerns as themes. He is recipient of Crossword Award for Children's Writing in 2010 and the Ladli National Media Award for Gender Sensitivity 2012, the Crossword Raymond Award for Children's Writing in 2016, and the Zeiss Wildlife Lifetime Conservation Award for 2019 for writing with, I quote, exceptional literary skill, I unquote, on the conservation of wildlife, especially birds. As a journalist, he has had well over 2,000 articles and photo features published in national and international press. And currently, he has a column down in the jungle land in the Indian Express I. He also writes a monthly children column in the Hindustan Times called Backpack Brief. His other interests include photography, automobiles, reading, and cooking. He lives in Delhi. Without wasting or intervening between you and the Ranjit Lal sir, I would like to request Ranjit Lal sir to illuminate us with his speech. Ranjit Lal sir.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be talking to you all. And today I'm going to be talking about a subject which has bothered me for quite a long time. And I've never really written anything about it. But it is about artificial intelligence. And it's will artificial intelligence steal our souls? Because this is something that has bothered me quite a bit, especially recently. That are we losing out being human beings due to our dependency on computers and machines uh, and devices that sort of almost think like us? So let's get started. Now, artificial intelligence has become the buzzword these days. It's impacted nearly every field of our lives, whether it is communication, transport, medicine, the economy, marketing, navigation, social media, and is even being roped in to do our household chores and to give us tender loving care by wagging its tail when we enter home after a hard day's work. Now, the advent of COVID 19, I think, has only speeded up the process. As I mean, a lot of students have not attended school for so long, would be knowing. And we are even more dependent now on the miracles that artificial intelligence can perform for us. But has it in the bargain also started stealing our souls? And these gadgets and machines that we use, have we become slaves to them? Are we losing out on those very qualities which define us as human? Way back in the old days, tribal people and indigenous communities used to object very strongly if to having their photographs taken, either by tourists or anthropologists or anybody. Some even do today, and they were appalled by the exact duplication of their images in the photograph, and they believed that with every picture taken, the camera stole a little bit of their souls. Now, fast forward today, and have we sold our souls to the computer chip and to social media? I believe there is a very real danger that this can happen and in many cases may have started happening. Artificial intelligence implies machines that can think just like us and respond like us. But do they really and but do they really do that? And what here is the elephant in the room? Let's take some of the major fields where artificial intelligence has played a major role and affected our lives. For better or for worse, you be the judge. We'll start off with what is probably the most popular use of artificial intelligence around the world, the use of social media and the almost universal use of smartphones, as I'm using now, in fact. And yeah, it is marvelous that we can now stay instantly in touch and send photographs to friends and relatives and frankly anyone anywhere in the world at the click of a button. And alas, this can and has brought out the soulless devil in us too, because it's also possible to send very unpleasant anonymous messages to people we don't even know. And the mandarins in charge of social media throw up their hands and take their holier than thou position that they can't interfere because it will be interfering with the privacy of the person. So by doing this, trolls and cyberbullies, displaying their full range of sheer cowardice, can make life miserable for recipients. Even worse, many have been diddled out of millions by online scamsters. If people want to become impervious to this, they have to grow an armored impervious shell as protective cover and be forever on their guard and a little less human. Those sending the messages, of course, are already completely without soul. They would not have dared to do such a thing by normal methods. This is easily the most. This is easy and anonymous, and not to mention totally cowardly. You could perhaps argue that there's also this matter of ticking what you call likes on social media. You post a comment or a photograph and yearn and plead to people to like it. Does that make you human? Yeah, everybody likes being liked. And if they don't, and if people don't give you the thumb and give you the thumbs down, you are greatly upset. The more likes you get, the more popular you think you are. Hurrah! But soon enough, there'll be a gnawing feeling inside of you. Do they really mean it? It's so easy to tick a box without really thinking. Much the same holds true for this obsession with selfies, where you actually post an image of yourself which is nothing like what you really look like or are. There's another more sinister aspect. The mandarins that control social media also control you. How many times have you been startled by customized ads springing up, making you offers just because you mentioned that you liked a particular product? Artificial intelligence is thinking about just that. Hey, there may be sales here. Social media knows where you've been, who you've met, where you've eaten, what you ate, what shopping you've done. Now, sticking to home and hearth, let's get back to the house. There are these new gizmos that can now recognize your voice and answer questions and obey instructions. Frankly, they give me the creeps. I cannot bring myself to have a conversation with an electronic box sitting on a table. I'd rather talk to myself or a parrot. If you're having a conversation with bots like Alexa, you must be a very lonely person indeed, and are making yourself lonelier still by doing so. If you don't actually talk to another person for too long, you lose the human touch and that which makes us human. Many parents these days communicate with their children solely by email. What a cozy, loving relationship that must be. No hugs and kisses. Well, you can always send emojis. But yeah, I know we have COVID these days, but still. You return home after a hard day's work, or not, and are greeted by a robo dog wagging its robo tail. Can that really substitute for a boxer that goes berserk with happiness when you walk through the door? We have voice recognition and face recognition, even smile recognition and retina recognition, primarily so human contact can be made unnecessary. As a species, we are being diminished, and we are becoming more and more like the machines that govern our lives. Oh, yes, artificial intelligence is hugely useful. Making online payments is becoming fast the norm. No need to actually go down to the shops to exchange grubby notes. I've even started buying fruit and veg online. But yes, there's no lively bargaining involved with the vendor, no asking about how her children and usually drunken husband are doing, no exchange of gossip. It's a cold, unfeeling transaction. The human touch has gone, and with it, a sliver of our souls. Artificial intelligence is also making inroads into other fields which really needs the human touch. Consumer helplines. You ring a helpline number and you are immediately given at breakneck speed a string of choices of language to be used, type of complaint, etc., with a mechanical voice telling you to press 1, press 2, press 0, your time's up, start again. And often issues can be complicated. And you do need a living person at the other end to hear and understand the whole story and make recommendations. You feel totally like you're a machine too, because that's how you are being dealt with. Another field where artificial intelligence has played and will be playing a very major role is in medicine and surgery. Recently I had a video consultation with my doctor. Yes, I could see him on the screen. He could see me. So you could say there was human contact. Okay. But he couldn't examine me as he might have done had I visited, used his stethoscope, taken my BP, made me, God forbid these days, cough. And I did feel as though I hadn't really seen him. But yes, there are now robots that can perform delicate surgeries on the brain and spine with more precision than any surgeon. And yes, for the last 40 plus years, I've lived on artificial pacemakers. With every new model, there are modifications, with the machine now sensing my requirements more accurately than ever before and reacting accordingly. Sometimes I joke with my doctors. I ask them, hey, has this model got Wi-Fi also? So that's the state things are, where we are heading. There's always the flip side to this too. Recently, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence unit implanted tiny computer chips into the brains of pigs. But at least with one of the pigs, they were able to control the animal's snout movements. The idea behind all this is, of course, noble. If this could be used and done to human brains with chips and electrodes in the brain, one could cure Alzheimer's and paralysis and offer neurological afflictions like that. But perversely, if used by the wrong people, it could be used to cause these conditions and worse. And there have been n number of movies made with this basic theme. The minds of entire populations are controlled by Big Boss, turning people into zombies. Imagine if you can control the thoughts and actions of POTUS, so this actually might be a good thing. You could rule the world. Actually, mind control is, not an entirely human construct. There's a nasty fungus out there called Ophicodippus unilateralis that takes over the brains of ants and makes them do their bidding. A fungus spore that leads on an ant will burrow, that lands on an ant will burrow inside it and take over its brain. The ant, not knowing quite what's happening, is made to climb up to a vantage point, cling to it while the fungus grows from inside out, killing the ant, of course, and eventually emerges to waft its spores around the forest, which in turn look for more ants. There's another truly bizarre example I'd like to sort of mention. There's a protozoa going by the name of Taxoplasma, which lives in the guts of cats and can only have its honeymoon in these salubrious surroundings. Wow, what a place to do it. So it does, and the babies are evacuated by normal natural methods in the cat's litter box or on the ground. The next generation wait. Soon enough, a rat comes by and infects itself. The taxo now gets to work. They invade the rat's brain and switch off the circuits which give it its fear of cats. Worse, it makes the rat feel so good that it actually falls in love with cats and goes searching for a pussycat lover. Pussycat lover, of course, is delighted with her meal, and the toxoprotozoa finds themselves back in the honeymoon suite. But be warned, you think this can only happen to rats. A good proportion of humans are also infected by toxo. They may make young men reckless while driving, for example, and affect the brain of babies. But just imagine if a single cell protozoa is capable of such a Machiavellian act, what will we humans be capable of? And artificial intelligence will be there to show us the way. There goes our souls. Now, self-drive cars and fly-by-wire aircraft are going to be the next big thing in the use of artificial intelligence in transportation. You sit back and relax, and your car will take you soundlessly and smoothly to your destination. You sip your coffee while your giant A380 takes off, sets its roost, and lands in its destination all on its own. Now, all artificial intelligence, of course, is the result of human intelligence at work. Sensors that pick up clues and information and transfer them to the vehicle in question so it can deal with them. Computers in these vehicles and aircraft, of course, are programmed with millions of options. If such and such thing is happening, say bad weather, along with such and such poor visibility, your course of action is this. But there will always be the unexpected. And when that happens, the computers, despite their artificial intelligence, will not know what to do. And pilots who by now have very little actual flying experience will wake up too late when they find that something's going wrong. They won't know how to deal with it because they haven't flown the plane themselves. And I mean, this can happen with cars, and this is why self-driving cars crash. The drivers think, oh, the car सब कुछ कर देगी, मैं तो सो रहा हूँ, and something happens on the road, and the car doesn't notice it or whatever, and bam, there's an accident. There goes your, and there goes your artificial intelligence. Now, the navigation in modern cars is another major application of artificial intelligence. You tell the car, yes, or you can talk to it, and it will guide you via the quickest, easiest route, taking into consideration minute by minute developments on the road ahead, like whether the road is blocked because of an accident that just happened, or the cops are speed checking. Usually it is accurate, but sometimes it can go bananas and make you drive into rivers or onto runways. And anyway, in India at least, most of the fun of finding your way around was to roll down your window and ask, and then try to figure out the completely garbled directions given. To my mind, That which makes us garbled makes us human. Even if the systems work flawlessly, imagine how boring it would be. Many people enjoy driving and flying, and if all you're required to do is to be a passenger in the driving seat, well, you're soon going to be bored out of your minds or become a backseat driver from hell. True, you can use commute time to do productive work, but you do have to keep an eye on your vehicle to ensure it's working flawlessly. Talking about cars some more, every modern car today is so loaded with computers and sensors that you have to have a PhD in computer science to fix anything that might go wrong. And all you normally have to do is to entirely replace a defective part, which can sometimes mean that if a tail light malfunctions, you have to replace the entire electrical system, motherboard, or whatever, not just the bulb. Also, cars today have become so silent and soulless, they are making us that way too. I still remember the days when I used to wake up my ancient, Padmini, Premier Padmini, early on winter mornings, just so she would take ages to start in winter, so that when I started her up later that morning to go to work, she was all ready to go. It was exactly like waking up a child and saying, "Now come on, get ready for school." You know, somehow you got those feeling that those old shuddering cars had a soul and could, like us, throw tantrums for no ostensible reason. They were human, and so were we. The use of robots in factories where things are mass produced has become almost universal. Car plants use them regularly, maintaining that they prevent workers from doing mundane, repetitive tasks. Robots are also far more precise and don't take shortcuts or have lunch breaks or get salaries or go on strike. The worker is made redundant and feels unwanted. Yet, and we give ourselves away here, there are some high end cars like Rolls Royce which boast of being handcrafted with the worker's signature on the part he or she made. It gives the worker a sense of pride and worth, and the buyer feels happy that there's been an actual human being who has made his vehicle and not some soulless robo. And yet, there are other markets in which the great sales spiel is untouched by human hand. So, well, you can think about that. Now, perhaps the field where artificial intelligence commits its biggest heist of our souls is in warfare and police action. As it is, soldiers and cops are trained and drilled to have their emotions neutered while going into action. There's that old story about Hitler who used to train his troops. They used to be given an Alsatian puppy to raise, and then when they raised the pup after for 6 months or 8 months or 10 months, they were made to shoot the pup to show that they were not, emotionally attached to it, and that's how they harden these soldiers. So that's exactly what's happening here. Now, in fact, nowadays, I mean, I've often wondered what a cop feels like or says to his children when he gets back home every evening from duty, having spent the day bludgeoning teenagers heads open with his lathi. But with smart weapons and smart drones and smart bombs and smart guns, you don't even have to feel a modicum of guilt. You don't have to see your adversary. You know that he or she was destroyed, mission accomplished. You have, of course, sold your soul in the bargain and may not have even known it. Totalitarian regimes and regimes heading in that direction are already doing this, brainwashing the young and impressionable into believing their often warped way of thinking. and interpretation of history and philosophies of life, of distorting facts, of turning lies into truths, injustice into justice. By using artificial intelligence, this can be more easily accomplished. Look what you can do with Photoshop. Here, of course, artificial intelligence is more the aider and abetter. You will perhaps now want to point out that behind artificial intelligence, as I said, lies human intelligence. Of course, that's the case. But no matter how clever and perceptive and efficient we make our gadgets, they will always lack one major facet: human emotion. That spark that gives us heart and soul. Even if we have robots that will eventually smile at us, or cuddle and hug us and call us sweetheart, we will always know that this is just a lifeless cold machine programmed to behave in such a manner. It cares a fig about us because it doesn't know what caring really is or means. It may, in the future, even have an eerily human skin and touch, but it's still dead, dead, dead. Turn off the power and poof, it's gone. Yes, I know a great many people love their cars and boats and planes. Men always refer to them as her, but they know that this is just a lovely vehicle, not a machine pretending to be us. Interact too much with machines, and we lose our ability to interact with us, and that, as those tribal and indigenous people feared, diminishes us. The biggest fear about artificial intelligence is, of course, that despite being born of human parentage, it may well one day assume a life of its own and do what it wants, not what its human masters want. This too has been exploited by writers and movie makers ad nauseum. But even someone as celebrated as late Stephen Hawking had this to say about it. I quote: "The coming of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. Once humans develop artificial intelligence, it would take off on its own and redesign itself at an ever increasing rate. Humans, who are limited by slow biological evolution, could not compete and would be superseded superseded by the soulless." Now, all this is rather sort of dark and dire and all that. So, I'd like to read out a short story I wrote, which is written in sort of, you could say, the lighter vein, or it's a happier kind of a thing. And it's called Wawa Woom and I. So, here goes. So, the guy who's going to buy a new car. So, hi there, handsome. Come to take me for a drive? I whirled around. The beautiful silken ruby model behind me flashed a coy diamond sidelight and purred, "I'd love to feel your powerful wrists twirl my steering wheel." The salesman approached with a toothpaste smirk on his face. "Ah, sir, welcome. Excellent choice indeed. That's a Wawa Woom Super SAXY. Well, I was shopping for a car, but not quite used to being propositioned by one. I nodded. "Have a seat, sir," the salesman gushed. The gleaming door opened, and the opening bars of the Beatles number something sounded. How the hell did the car know that was one of my favorites? Inside it was snug and cozy as a den of vice. Then I was distracted by the what it had started doing, which had doing strange and wonderful things to me. "Hello, make yourself comfortable," the car purred huskily, "and caress your fingers on my steering wheel. Can I get you a drink?" The center console popped open, and there was a bucket of champagne on ice with boots. "To us," she cooed. But first put your hands on my steering wheel. Tent- Tentatively I did so. It was like touching the cheek of some fair maiden. Outside I could see the salesman's smirk get even smugger. Start me up, the car moaned. Oh, just start me up. Of course, there was no going back after that. 10 minutes later, I had signed the check and driven out of the showroom. Thanks, she said. I thought I was going to be on the shelf forever. Never, I said, reveling in the comfort and changing the gear with the delicacy of kissing an earlobe. I need some gas, she said, driving in automatically into a gas station. To my horror, she stopped by before the pump, stocking Glenfiddich. Only single malt for me, she whispered huskily, casting a disdainful look at the other cars filling up on Shiva's Regal and Black Dog. 50 liters, thank you. Dumbly I nodded. Of course, I said. She headed straight for the car wash afterwards. I need a shampoo, she explained. You don't mind, do you? I'm feeling so yucky. Not at all, not at all. And then she headed for the booth, spraying channel number 5. Got to smell nice, she said coquettishly, or the pollution boys won't like it. What could I say? Well, nothing, because she headed straight for the boutique next door to the pump. Half an hour later, we drove out. She'd got herself gold-plated alloys, an X-rated music system, a home theater, snazzy windscreen shades, a jacuzzi, gold-plated instrumentation, studded with precious stones, and, well, need I go on? Look in the vanity mirror, dear, she purred huskily as we drove out. You look as if your self-esteem could do with some turbo. Well, my bank balance certainly could. But I did what she said. I turned down the sunshade and looked at the vanity mirror. Harrison Ford looked back at me. He's the default mold, she explained. John Wayne, Jack Nicholson, Richard Gere, Sean Connery. You name him, I have him, she purred. Thanks, I whispered hoarsely. My girlfriend will sure appreciate that. And then, at a traffic light, a brutish SUV nudged her. That overweight SOB pinched my bottom, she squealed. I was about to charge out and do battle with the driver, but she locked the doors. I'll handle this, she said, in a voice as cold and hard as an icicle spear. He's nothing but a fat slob. Invitingly, she winked her rear LEDs at the SUV, and the chase was on. I could see it slobbering coolant all down its radiator grill as it panted after us. Oops, she giggled suddenly. All this weaving and swerving, I spilt a little mobile oil. Clumsy me. In the rearview mirror, I watched the SUV suddenly waltz crazily all over the road and then hit the divider and roll over. One sec. One sec. Page is stuck. Sorry for the break. Anyway, eh? Do you know any other methods of self-defense? I asked. Yes, sweetheart, she said. Watch this. Another fool had drawn up close and was leering. I heard a deadly shuck, followed by a rending, tearing metallic sound, then a sharp report, followed by a hiss as we zoomed away from it. Ben Hur hubcap, she explained proudly. That fool will think twice before he comes close to another car. That poor fool's car had a great rent all along its one side, and its tires were in a mess. You don't fool around, do you? I said admiringly. No way. Now let me show you what I can really do. And like a thunderbolt, she took off. The speed limit was 50 kilometers per hour, and we were hitting around 100 kilometers per hour when we heard the sirens. Oops, that's done it. We'd better stop, I said. Relax, sweetie. Leave it to me. Here come the cops. Watch me. She took off like a bat of hair. When I opened, the sirens had receded. We may have thrown them off, but they'll have our number and description, I said glumly. She chuckled. Yes, they'll be looking for a BMW limousine with the number plate of the Prime Minister's car. What? The miracles of modern technology, my dear. I changed my appearance. People have been doing it since time immemorial. Naturally, I had to show her off, so I drove her to my girlfriend's place. Come for a drive, I invited. You'll love my new car. Meet Vava Voom SAXY. My girlfriend looked at her with her head cocked to one side and that surprise expression that girls seem to like so much. Nice car, she commented. But a shade a bit too sirenly scarlet, don't you think? Makes her look like a tart. And those wheels, they clash with the skirt. My beautiful new car gave a tiny shudder. But she didn't forget her manners and opened her door. Get in, I said. This car is something else. You bet she was. She shut her door suddenly, snipping off one of my girlfriend's beautifully lacquered fingernails. Oops, sorry, darling, she tinkled, and stifled what I swore was a giggle. Automatically, she drew the seatbelt tight around her, binding her arms to her side. Just for your and his safety, she whispered in a naughty way. No hanky-panky while he's driving, and that sort of thing, darling. You can get into trouble, you know. And later, when my girlfriend drew down the sunshade to check her makeup, she screamed. Medusa glared back at her from the vanity mirror. 20 minutes later, my girlfriend was squirming in her seat. What's up now? I asked, grinning wolfishly. Nice massage, no? Massage? I think I'm getting a rash on my bottom. The seat is like sitting on bichu booty. Stop the car. I'm getting out. Oh hell, were there problems in paradise? Wawa Woom, you should know better, I said reprovingly, after I dropped my angry girlfriend off. That's no way to behave with a lady. Scarlet hussy, eh? Scarlet tart, eh? But I showed her good, didn't I? You girls must learn to get along. Sure, she said. You go and tell your bhenji that, you two-timer. Alas, it got worse. A bright red Porsche Cayenne drove by one morning, and Wawa Woom was out of the gate and chasing it, winking her lights and purring and cooing for all she was worth. She never came back that night. And then my girlfriend showed up at the wheel of a huge, wide Hummer, dressed in battle fatigues and equipped with 5 feet tall wheels and a roof mounted missile launcher. He had a tattoo of the Terminator on his hood, whose muscles bulged visibly. Look what I got, she cooed. Isn't he a hunk? Isn't he just too cool? And as I approached, the Hummer made a deep down grunting, growling noise, like a brontosaurus getting seriously annoyed, or the Terminator working himself up into attack mode. Sit, boy, stay, I said, backing away hastily. The Hummer made another ugly sound. There came a plaintive toot from the gate. Covered with mud, her antennae awry, Vavavoom stood in the driveway, obviously in the last stages of exhaustion. The Hummer made another unidentifiable noise, and Vavavoom gave a breathless squeal. Fat boy, you better catch her before she faints, I said, as the cars linked bumpers and shone their headlights deep into each other. Come on, my dear, I told my girlfriend, taking her hand. It looks like such a nice day for a walk in the park. So that's the story. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I think that's very much the end of my lecture also. Now, if there are any questions, feel free to ask.
Yes, if there is any question, we can ask sir directly by unmuting your handsets, please. And
All
as
right, sir.
yes, Anup sir, please.
Congratulations, sir, for the very interesting talk that you gave. I'm Anup. I'm from I teach in a college in Kerala, and I was just wondering, when you're saying that, was it not always the same in the pre-selfie era? Were we not always seeking for acknowledgement and from our parents, relatives, friends? Were we not always faking, like with the makeup or with the hair dye? So how is it different? I mean, are we not exaggerating, overblowing this like selfie phenomena? So how is it
Well,
different?
I think, I mean, when you actually meet somebody who says they like you, and you know actually that they really don't because of their actions, you can see through them and all that. But now when it's just coming as an image, as a picture or something like that, you're not really, you don't really know. I mean, what that person thinks about you, and it's so easy to just say like, "Ah, I like you," and I mean, on the other hand, you don't even know what that person may actually be like, unless you met, talked, been with that person, spent time, you know, figured out their pluses and what you think their minuses are, and you met that person. Here, it's by remote. It's like doing it by doing it between machines. That I mean, I see. Yeah, for example, when I get a mail sort of saying that I like your article or whatever, um, it does make you feel, yeah, wow, somebody liked it. But then you read on and you see what they like about it, and if they don't have very much to say,
Yeah, fine.
then you know that
Concern that
well,
I had was that has a basic human attitude change towards people. We always crave for attention. We always, yeah, you're right. Like, right now the audience is an anonymous one, but then again, suppose if a stranger said you're handsome, would I not be happy at that point of time? And I tried to impress people. Maybe always try to do that, right? So it's just
what
the medium and the quantity that is now different,
well,
isn't it?
if somebody said I was handsome, the first thing I would do was look in the mirror and say, "Oh God, this guy's lying through his teeth. There's something here. It's all rubbish." So that's one way to sort of counter check. But but for example, people are buying likes on social media. They're paying money to other people to like them. Now, I mean, you can't do that in real life. You can't say, "I'm going to give you $100." You tell everybody that you like me very much. That doesn't kind of work. But
Yeah,
because
with
the
the
social
TRP
media,
business now, Arnab story today, TRP is being bought and sold, but like I suppose that's,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's a similar sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, if there is any opinion and observation, we can write in the chat box as well. If anybody is having problem, so you can put it into the chat box as well.
I was reminded, rather, listening to your story, uh, Ranjit Lalji, about this Pygmalion myth and the sculptor falling in love with the sculpted statue. What's
Uh,
the
uh,
story like? And then goddess Venus brings her into life, and so the object becomes the human. And I was thinking how it's the reverse.
yeah,
Listening to your talk, actually, we are becoming the machine rather than the
yeah,
machine becoming
and
us.
I think it's very dangerous if it's happening to children because they will at some point or the other never know what it really is to be human because they've always been a machine.
Yes, yes.
They've always that's a big fear that I have, that our kids will not know, and then when they actually do meet each other, they will not know how to interact properly like people. Like you have friends, you will fight with them, you will make up all the rest of it and all that. Face to face, you're a person, you're a human. you know that that emotional part is completely missing from any machine. It can't have it. It just cannot have it. It just, and of course we now, scientists are now saying it's all chemicals in the brain that are doing these things, and we all ruled by what the chemical reactions in the brain are and all that. But still, we are still human beings. We still feel. You tell a machine, I hate you, and if of course the machine might be fed with that info too, it might come back and say, I hate you too. Okay, but you know it's dead. Somebody has fed it with that nonsense. So
You said that this is one area you have been thinking about, not written much on it, this artificial intelligence stealing our soul.
yeah.
The number of times you have used the word soul here, what have been your thoughts on the soul, sir? Just a curious question.
Well, I am not at all a spiritual person. I don't think I really believe in God. And I believe in the theory of evolution, like Richard Dawkins has come out with. If you've read his book on evolution and all that, it makes perfect sense. So I don't believe in all those hocus pocus magic stuff and all that. And so for the soul, yeah, there is a life force. That's why we are alive. Otherwise we wouldn't be. And we do know what's right and what's wrong. Now this is again, you don't know that's because we have been taught that this is right. It's not right to go and kill your friend, but it is right to help somebody or whatever. So you know that, and I don't now. What's interesting is I'm still trying to figure out: is that instinctive? Is that something we are born with, or is that something that we acquire? Now I think there are guys who said that all this is inborn, and there are guys that say there's nothing, everything is taught, and there are people who will say it's a mixture of both. What you turn out to be is a mixture of what you've been taught and and your own predisposition, thanks to your genes and all the rest of it. But I've known lovely children who have the most horrible parents, and vice versa. Horrible parents who, it's so you can't really draw the line. What do you say? So for the soul, though, I don't really think, I'm not, as I said, spiritual at all. Zero. I don't believe in all that. I think it's just nonsense. People being taken for a jolly good ride, because that's where an explanation, a rational explanation, is not required. You don't have to give a rational explanation for something. You say, yeah, it's God. It's God who's doing. Richard Dawkins happened before God. Who made God? Where did he come from? वो कहाँ से आया था? Is there any answer to that? So that's how sort of I think. Not spiritual at all. But I will not go hurt somebody or do something awful to anybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Very well, very comprehensively, but very well answered. Yeah.
Sir, your story of Wawa Womb has make me remember the book recently has been in the discussion. Susanna Zukov's, one of the professors from the Harvard, who has written upon the age of surveillance in the capitalism. That as the China is attacking Indian, cyber world, and all these things are happening. Susanna Zuboff, that apart from this, this soul and the spirituality and all these things, she has brought out one wonderful issue out of her book. Being a female herself, she has discussed certain things that how far female need to have the privacy about her choice and selections and all. But in this case, what she has find out, and she has brought out the thesis, is that in this intelligence, artificial intelligence, this privacy of female would be in danger. Why? Because the parents would not be knowing that what is happening with their girl, that the multinational companies would be knowing that what is happening in the personal life of a girl. That's a wonderful story she has brought out, and I really appreciate you, that you have brought it into the lighter tone in front of us. because at this time when I used to read her, that I thought how to bring it in front of the people, because it's a time to come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, as it is, girls have a hard time. I mean, and with this, this artificial intelligence and advertisers snooping on them and their social lives, as you said, they know more about the child than the parents do, because the child, certainly at an adolescent age, the child keeps everything buttoned up. He doesn't really, or she doesn't really confide too much in her parents. And if she's never really confided, thanks to all this use of computers and games and all the rest of it, she is going to be more closer to some unknown, unseen entity who's advising her or not, or whatever it is, and leading her all over the place.
true, sir.
So there's a question coming from Dhwani for you, asking you about
Yeah.
Do you take inspiration from poets like Ted Hughes, who write so much about birds and animals?
I don't really read very much poetry. I have read a bit of few poems of Ted Hughes, but I find poetry again is a very personal thing, and unless you know enough about the poet's life and background and what has made him or her write what she's done, the work, I find it difficult to sometimes understand. I don't understand what the context is, what they're talking about. So I don't really read too much of poetry. But there's a lot of very nice lyrical prose also that you can sort of read in stories. So those I go more for literary works rather than I don't go to so much for poetry. I've got Walt Whitman and all that lying there. I've read a bit of those Leaves of Grass, but not too much, and it has never really grabbed me as such.
When you write about animals and birds, you often give them human characteristics, anthropomorphic characteristics. How does that come in? I mean,
Well, if you observe them enough, you'll see that they do have those human characteristics. They do remind you straight away of characteristics that we have. Like there's these birds called jungle babblers, Sat Bhai of the Seven Sisters. They're these
right.
little brown birds that make a lot of noise. They move around in groups, and their tails are very loose, and they keep wagging their tails. And they make a lot of noise. They look like angry birds. They are frowning all the time. They remind me of cops, because they come into the garden, search your garden properly for kira makoda, what you've been hiding from them, and take the scold you, and the tails are sort of swinging around as though they were lathis. And yet, these birds have a very soft side to them, because there's nothing better they like doing than early in the morning. You'll find them all sitting next to each other cozily, each one riffling the feathers of the other and cleaning the feathers of the other. And they look angry and ecstatic at the same time. And that is just priceless. And I sometimes think that, maybe policemen should be made to do this every morning in their morning parades before they go on duty. Make them a little more human when they're using their lathis. If they start the day that way.
Great. No, I asked this question because often, these days with a lot of essays on eco-criticism and all, one of the things that eco-critics often say that actually we put on the emotions on the animals, and that's also something which is quite forced. So, I mean, this is just a curious question regarding.
Well, animals do respond. Animals do respond. If you interact with them enough and in the right way, they will respond to you. I mean, for example, if you go and sit in a park every day and you start feeding, say, squirrels and other birds, in a while you'll find those birds and squirrels coming up to you. They'll climb onto you. They'll sit on your shoulder, and they become, sort of, they trust you. And there is interaction then going on. And even with the larger animals, I'm not saying one should do this all the time. Some people do it with lions and tigers, which I think is foolish.
Yeah.
Because it's idiotic. It's just them showing off rather than anything else. But a lot of other animals do. See how your dog responds to you. If you kept pet dogs, they go mad with happiness when they see you, and you doesn't matter if you scolded them or not taken them for a walk. They'll sulk a little and then they'll come back and lick your face, and of course they sort of emote with you. So it's just even apparently even fish have these emotions. I used to, I had to keep a pair of goldfish, and I didn't like it because they were in a bowl and they were swimming around, and I hated it. But you had to feed them.
Yeah.
They would see me coming in the morning every day and then get to the top of that bowl and look up and wait to be fed. They knew that, and if somebody else came, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
So there is some contact that does exist.
And this part is also quite enigmatic. This link, this communication that we seem to be, the human and the non-human communication that seems to get done. Yeah,
it is. I think we're still finding out a lot about it as yet.
Right.
We don't know everything about it as yet.
Correct. Oh, there's a question on how much time do you spend on the social media and the internet?
I don't know how much time, but I only use the internet maybe to research a few articles for research methods. And even that, then when you're researching on the internet, you have to, cross-check. First, the main thing is what is the source of the information that you're looking at. Because people come out with a lot of nonsense also. So you have to check that. And otherwise, I'm supposed to be on Facebook. I never use it. I hardly ever use it. And email to karna padta hai for sending articles and for contacts with publishers and all that. So that I do, and it's very convenient to send your manuscripts also that way. But otherwise, I'm not at all. YouTube, you see a few YouTube clips or whatever, especially on cooking, which I am fond of. So there are a lot of clips on recipes and all that. Wahan bhi you try out, you read through quite a few, and then you make up your mind, which is theek, which looks okay, which looks doable. And of course, some of those fellows are bloody crooks. They won't tell you how much amount of this and amount of that, or how long you have to cook it for. Nothing. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then chalu is also. So, but I don't spend too much. Otherwise, I'm not contacting people and talking to people on social media at all. It's only on the phone or with these WhatsApp chats or whatever there are.
Yeah, more direct than.
Yeah, straight. All these WhatsApp videos are very convenient. You can see the person also.
What are your thoughts on literature? Because since again, coming back to your emphasis on human relationship and the soul, and this is one thing that one kind of a repetitive theme that literature has taken, literature of any society. And probably this is one domain of knowledge that makes us aware about us being human.
Yes, I think it also depends on at what stage in your life you are. Because when you're young, when you're a student and all that, you want to read, angry stuff and things about rebellion and, stuff like that. And then you want to read, of course, love stories and stuff like that too, because you're, susceptible, you're that age group and all that. And then later on, you want to read serious stuff, stories which have these dark, dire endings. And now I found that I don't like stories which are too dark and too dim, unless they're really brilliantly written. There are some, I think Toni Morrison and one or two other people who are just wonderful. I mean, and their prose is just riveting. It's very dark. It leaves you in a horrible mood. But these days, I prefer reading and writing stories with a happy ending. I'm a sucker for happy endings. So something has to end well in the end. Otherwise, what's the point? So that's how I sort of one of my, I mean, non-fiction myths. Of course, there's Richard Dawkins, who I like very much, because there's a book I think he calls The Magic of Reality, in which he debunks all these myths, all the myths that have grown up in society, and replace them with what the scientific explanation for these phenomena are. And he's quite frank. He said in some cases we don't know, and that is the whole purpose of science, to find out. Because if he knew everything, there would be no science left. So and he explains evolution beautifully. All these people. I mean, I just don't believe in faith healers and people of that kind who say that, yeah, there's a third eye and your hand is full of all sorts of, your head here and tail here and intestines here and all that. I don't believe in all that at all. Zero. And, if you were a faith healer, what are you doing healing the rich? You go to the hospital and heal everybody there. What's the problem? If you can do it, karo.
Correct. Yeah. Mm.
So literature, yeah, there are writers which have really stuck in my head for a long time. There was Lawrence Durrell, is that Alexandria Quartet, that was beautifully written. There's a guy called Mervyn Peake, who wrote the Titus books, dark and gloomy. It's a trilogy, 3 books, and brilliantly written. I've still got that. So those are a few guys that they really. And there's that Australian, Patrick White.
Patrick White.
Chariot, Riders in the Chariot, and books that you will never forget. Once you've read, they will all, because he has a way of telling the truth, which is like hitting you in the head with a sledgehammer. There's this is it, correct. So he has a way of getting into people's minds, and I think he won the Nobel Prize also a long time ago.
Well, this has been the 10th talk in this series, Ranjit Laji, we have had in honor of our teacher, Professor Avadhesh Kumar Singh, from whom we have all learned the magic of being human, like you emphasized upon. And in this 10th talk, for the first time, we have had really someone reading out a story to us. Absolutely, a first-hand contact, listening to a story with literature. That's been very unique, very wonderful.
Well, I'm a writer, so I will write stories.
Yeah. I mean, when we didn't. I mean, your short brief that didn't mention, so that you must have kept that as a surprise. That you will toward the end of your talk, you'll read out a story you yourself wrote. So that was really wonderful. Yeah, and on behalf of the Alumni Association, on behalf of the Department of English and Comparative Literary Studies, Saurashtra University, Rajkot, and all the people who have attended it today, it has been really a very enriching experience. Not just because of the theme of the talk itself, but it's a kind of an inconclusive thing that we are left with. We have to become a little more aware as to where technology is leading us, and probably with this awareness, we would be able to remain on this side of the human life
and deal with it better. Yeah,
deal with it better. So if there are no more observations, then we are crossing 6 o'clock on a weekend evening. So I will thank you once again, Rajit, very much, and thank you for agreeing to come and
no problem.
Talk to us. Thank you, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank Bijal Vachrajani also for sharing your contact with us. She was our first speaker in the same lecture series.
Okay.
And she was very enthusiastic that we should have people like you. So 2 weeks before we had Mr. Bittu Sagal, And now we
Okay.
had, yes, we had you also. So it was an
Uh,
enjoyable session. Thank you for joining us, sir.
I
you're welcome.
honestly believe, Rajit Lalji, you would never agree to speak to us. Honestly, I mean, I thought you would be so busy, and
No, no.
this little unknown entity of a small department in a off Ahmedabad, a place Rajkot. People might have heard about it, but people don't know much about it.
No, I landed in Rajkot. We were going to Gir. So
Right. Right.
the flight landed in Rajkot and then we drove.
Yeah, so
So
that's
we
always a
drove.
transit place. Whether you want to go to Gir or to
Yeah,
Somnath, or the
yeah,
religious-minded people go to that side,
yeah,
Somnath, or to Porbandar even now. But there are
yeah,
direct flights, Bombay to Porbandar.
yeah.
But honestly, I kept on postponing it, and then it was actually Dhwani who insisted that I said, okay, you make the first contact because yeah, Dhwani is Bijal's cousin also,
Uh-huh.
and. By the way, today is Dhwani's birthday, so all of us wish her a
Okay.
very yeah, happy birthday to you. So it was Dhwani who pursued it, and thank you again for coming
Thank you.
and
You're
Thank you
talking
very
welcome.
to us.
much, sir. And all.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Okay.
We shall keep in touch. We'll keep on reading, and now a
Yeah.
little more responding to your articles. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.